Hi, I'm Ria, and welcome to this reflection practice. This is a place to slow down, become more aware, and explore the questions that shape our lives. I believe every season of life asks something different from us. Sometimes it can ask us to let go. Sometimes it can ask us to begin again. And sometimes it simply asks us to notice something we've been carrying for a long time. So before we begin, let's arrive here together. So let's all take a slow breath in and let it go. And just notice your body. Notice your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Notice whatever sounds are around you, what you can see. And you don't have to change anything. Just notice. You're here. And for the next few moments, there's nowhere else you need to be. Nothing to fix, nothing to prove, nothing to earn. Just this moment. So today's reflection actually came out of something I've been thinking about for a while. And the question is, what happens when the person who is always giving finally needs to receive? And I've been sitting with that question because I realized something about myself. For a long time, giving has been one of the ways that I knew how to connect with people. You know, I gave time, I gave money, I helped, I solved problems, I anticipated things, I showed up. And sometimes I didn't even think of it as giving. It just kind of felt like this is what you do for the people you love. And there is something beautiful about that generosity. I don't want to lose that. Being generous has helped me become a better person overall. And it has helped me through some of the hardest things that I've ever experienced. But I started wondering, what happens when giving becomes the way you prove that you belong? And what happens when you eventually need something too? So I've been reflecting on my family a lot lately. And I've realized that I spent a lot of energy trying to understand the people around me. Why does this person behave this way? Why does that person react that way? Why? What happened in their childhood? And the questions can keep going on. Like, what did their parents teach them? What did the culture teach them? Where did they learn this? What did survival require from them? And I looked at family systems and I thought about generational patterns. I explored spirituality. I've listened to people talk about parts work, family constellations, trauma, attachment, judgment, forgiveness, all kinds of different ways of understanding ourselves. And I actually love looking through all these different lenses, not because I think one of them has the complete answer, but because sometimes one particular lens gives you a language for something you've felt for years. And lately, one thing has become increasingly clear to me. I learned how to be the giver, the dependable one, the reliable one, the one who could figure it out, the one who helped, the one who handled things. And somewhere along the line, I think I started confusing that role with who I actually was. And so that also led me to this uncomfortable part. I wonder if there was an unwritten bargain underneath all of that giving, not a conscious one, right? I never sat down and thought, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, then someday my family will owe me. I mean, it wasn't like that. Not at all. It was much more subtle. Maybe somewhere inside me, a part of me, there was an assumption that said, if I show people how much I love them by continuously showing up for them, then when I really need them, maybe they'll show up for me. Sometimes they did. A lot of times they didn't. And I don't know, that realization has been painful because it makes you question something much bigger than money, much bigger than houses, much bigger than who gets what. For me, it's like one of the things I've been asking is, what did I give? Did that even matter? Did anyone see it? Was it important? And, was I allowed to need something too? And so that part of why that's part of the reason why the whole inheritance and property situation it's an emotional charge for me. Because on the surface, it's about the property, right? The numbers, the money, the actual facts and circumstances, the tangible things, like who might receive what. But when I really sit with it, I don't think that's the whole story, because I contributed significantly to my family's home when I was younger. At that time, it was a large portion of my money. It was not insignificant at all. And I remember a close friend to me was asking, hey, are you sure you want to keep doing that? And I remember thinking, hey, these are my parents. Of course I'm going to help. I didn't put my name to anything. I didn't think about contracts or equity or inheritance. I didn't think about the future. I just thought, oh, they need help now. I was thinking about family, and I was thinking, this is what we do for each other. And now, years later, when conversations about property and inheritance, they come up, it can activate something inside me. Not simply, oh, I should get more. It's not that simple, but did all of that count? All the years of helping, did that count? And I don't mean just even financially. Did the money count? My sacrifices count? Doing things for others, assignments, things like that. Did anyone even remember? And that's where the emotional charge comes from. Because sometimes money becomes a measuring stick for something that money can't actually measure, like who was valued, who was protected, who was expected to give, who got to receive, right? And so, with all this context, I've been thinking about a metaphor that just came to me. Like, for example, you can donate blood and your body is going to replenish it. You can donate bone marrow, right? A little difficult, but you can do it. You can even donate a kidney and still live. There are ways of giving that are generous but sustainable. But if you give away your heart, you don't get to keep living the same way. And I started wondering, have I sometimes tried to donate my heart? Not literally, obviously, but giving so much of myself that I became depleted. And maybe that's the hardest part, is that I don't even think I realized I was doing it at the time. Because when you're used to giving doesn't always feel like a sacrifice. It feels normal. It feels like expected, until, hey, one day you need something. And then you realize, I actually don't even know how to receive, or even ask to receive, or even know. And so that's where motherhood brought something to the surface for me, because becoming a mother made receiving almost, it's just unavoidable. Suddenly I needed help. I needed sleep. I need someone to hold the baby. I need someone to make food. I need to use the bathroom. I need someone to simply be there. And I realized I didn't really know how to ask. Or maybe I knew how to ask in theory, but emotionally receiving, it felt uncomfortable. And that's what made me start wondering, where did I learn all this? Where did I learn that being strong was safer? When did I learn that needing something made me uncomfortable? Because it kind of like implies that, well, maybe you're weak. Where did I learn that love was something I demonstrated through what I could provide? And, motherhood didn't create this pattern. Motherhood, it simply made it just simply impossible to ignore. So, and, something interesting happened this week. I've always been someone who notices synchronicities. I think they're just really cool. I don't really think that every coincidence is a cosmic message. I don't know that, but I do think there are moments when something crosses your path and you suddenly notice it because you are asking a particular question. So I was at a historic park at the farmer's market, and I looked through those, you've seen them around town, like their community book exchanges, like a little tiny mini library. And there's like something cool about finding a book that someone else decides they no longer need it, and then now you have it for free. And there it was. It's this book. It's called Lean In, right? It's a book I've heard about for years, and what made it interesting was that it would appear to be signed by Sheryl Sandberg. Now, maybe that was just a coincidence. Maybe someone was just cleaning out their bookshelf and they just needed some space, or maybe it means absolutely nothing. But I found myself asking, why this book? Why now? Because I've been thinking so much about giving, receiving, achievement, work, identity, motherhood, and the roles women are taught to occupy. And suddenly there's this book about women, work, leadership, ambition, and leaning into our lives. So that could be a synchronicity or an intuition, pattern recognition, something spiritual, whatever it is. I find it interesting because, it gave me something to reflect on. And maybe that's just enough, And, with that in mind, I became increasingly interested in how many different traditions seem to ask similar questions, right? You can look at family systems, you can look at parts work and ask these questions like, what part of me learned that I needed to be the strong one? You can look through family constellation and ask, what patterns or loyalties might I be carrying from the system I came from? You can explore spirituality and ask, where am I experiencing separation instead of connection? You can look at astrology and symbology and ask, what themes are showing up in this particular season of my life? You can explore the idea of Akashic records or ancestral patterns and ask, what story am I carrying that may be larger than my individual life? And then you can even look to some regular psychology and simply ask, these are the patterns my brain and nervous system learned. I don't think we need to choose one explanation. Maybe these are simply different languages for asking better questions. And that's what I'm interested in. Not certainty, but curiosity. So it's one of those things that I've been thinking about. Because when I look at my family, I can see so many different types of adaptations, right? Some people give, some people take, some people withdraw, some people become very successful, right? Some people become very independent. Some people become the caretaker. Some people become the one who needs rescuing. Some people become the one who never wants to need anyone. And then we interact with each other through all these adaptations. And then suddenly we're not just two adults having a conversation. We're bringing decades and decades of history into the room. And that's what makes families so complicated. I spent a lot of time trying to understand my sister, my brother, my parents, right? But I'm beginning to see that there is a point where understanding someone else can become another way of, staying connected with them, right? Because if I can just understand them just enough, maybe I'll finally understand why they couldn't give me what I needed. Maybe I'll finally understand why they didn't see me. Maybe I'll finally understand why things happened the way they did. And perhaps the other harder realization is understanding someone does not mean they will become capable of meeting you, of seeing you, of acknowledging you, of loving you. And this is where I've also been thinking about judgment. I've been listening to a lot of conversations about spirituality and judgment and judgment and separation. And I don't want that, I don't want to turn into that. This thing where I just shouldn't be angry, or, I just shouldn't judge, or I just need to forgive everyone. I mean, those are easy to say because that can become another way of abandoning yourself. If something hurt me, it hurt me, right? If someone crossed a boundary, I can recognize that. If I felt unseen, I can acknowledge that. Compassion doesn't require me to pretend that it didn't happen, right? But maybe there is a difference between saying something you did hurt me, right? And, you're a terrible person. Everything you do proves that, One leaves room for complexity, and the other one, it creates a prison, right? And I think I'm interested in finding around that middle where, I can have discernment without hatred. I can have boundaries without making someone a villain. I can understand someone's history without excusing their behavior. And I can acknowledge my own pain without making another person's acknowledgement the requirement for my own healing. So, and maybe this is the deepest part. Underneath all these layers, I think I'm grieving something. It's not just money. It's not just property, not just the family dynamics. I'm grieving the possibility that maybe the people I spent so much of my life trying to show my love to, may never fully understand what I needed from them. And that's a different kind of grief. Because when you finally realize that you have a choice, you can keep trying. You can keep explaining. You can keep giving. You can keep hoping that if you just find the right words, maybe they'll finally understand. Or maybe you can begin asking a different question. What would it look like for me to witness myself? What if I don't need someone else to confirm that what happened mattered? What if I don't need someone else to tell me, yes, you gave a lot, that acknowledgement? Or like, what happened to you, it was hard. Or even something like, you deserve support. Or you matter. What you needed mattered. What if I can begin saying those things to myself? Not because of other people's acknowledgement, because it doesn't matter. It does, of course. Being witnessed, it matters. Connection matters. Community matters. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm creating this reflection circle. Because I don't want my ability to move forward to depend on someone who may never be able to give me the witness I want. Right? So maybe the reflection for me right now is not how do I give less, that extreme end. Maybe it's, can I give from a place from abundance instead of obligation? Can I help without secretly hoping that helping will guarantee someone will help me later? Can I say yes because I genuinely want to? Can I say no without feeling guilty? Can I receive without immediately thinking, oh, what do I owe you? Can someone do something kind for me and I simply say, thank you, and let that be enough? That's hard for me. That's why I'm practicing it. And something else happened this week that reminded me kind of all this things that I've been thinking about. I ran into people from an earlier part of my life. These are women that I knew in my 20s, and now they're mothers. And so, some of them have and they're mothers, and some have babies, some have older children. And so, it's like there was something about being around them that made me think about community, not necessarily deep friendship. Not necessarily people who knew everything about anything about me, but just being around physically, around people who are living through similar seasons. And I thought about how much we lost when community becomes something we have to intentionally schedule, organize, or manufacture. Sometimes simply seeing other people living their lives reminds us, hey, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only person navigating this. I'm not the only mother. I'm not the only woman figuring out who I am. I'm not the only person carrying something invisible, right? I'm not the only one family drama. And maybe connection doesn't always begin with intimacy. Maybe sometimes it just begins with presence. People just here with each other. And that also begins me to why I am creating this reflection circle. I don't want to create another place where we perform being okay. I don't want it to be a place where someone comes in and gives everyone advice. It's not exactly what I'm doing. I don't want it to be therapy. I don't want it to be about fixing yourself. I want it to be a space where we can slow down, right? Reflect, ask questions, listen, and witness one another. Because I think sometimes what we need most isn't another answer. Sometimes we need someone to say, it's so simple, I hear you. I understand why that would affect you. I'm here. And maybe over time we learn how to offer that same witnessing to ourselves. And this founding reflection circle, it's intentionally going to be small. There will only be 5 people in the founding group so that we can actually slow down and have meaningful space for each other. We'll have a live group reflection, a little individual time, journal prompts, and a space to explore the questions underneath the things we're experiencing. And if that sounds something like you've been looking for, I'll leave more information in the description below so you can check that out. And so before we finish, I want to leave you with a few questions, of course. And you don't have to answer them all. You don't even have to answer them today. These are just choose one and just sit with it. You can journal on it. So one of them is, where did I first learn that love meant giving? What happens inside me when I need something from someone else? And here's another one. Do I know how to receive without immediately thinking about what I owe? Have I ever given more than I actually had because I wanted to feel connection or valued? What would generosity look like if it didn't require self-abandonment? What am I still hoping someone else will acknowledge before I allow myself to move forward? And maybe the hardest one, can I witness myself even when someone else doesn't? So take a breath. Just let it out. Just notice what comes up. So, as you leave today's reflection, I hope you remember something. You don't have to earn your place here. Your worth has never depended on how much you give. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to earn kindness. You don't have to earn compassion. You don't have to become someone else to be worthy of connection. Maybe the work isn't becoming less generous. Maybe it's learning to give without disappearing. Maybe it's learning to receive without shame. Maybe it's learning that boundaries don't mean we stop loving people. And maybe healing isn't about finally getting everyone else to understand us. Maybe sometimes healing is becoming the person who understands us, the person who notices, the person who listens, the person who says, yes, that mattered. You mattered. And perhaps that is where connection begins again. Not with proving, not with performing, not with giving everything away, but with being willing to stay present with ourselves. So let's take one final breath together. Breathe in. And slowly let it go. Thank you for sharing this reflection practice with me. And if these reflections resonate with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me for future conversations. And if you're looking for a quieter place to explore these questions with others, my founding reflection circle is now open. It's small, just 5 people, so we can slow down, reflect, and witness with each other with honesty and compassion. You'll find more information in the description below. So until next time, take gentle care of yourself. And remember, you don't have to earn your place here. I'll see you in the next reflection. Bye for now.